You wake up once your body has naturally rested. No alarms, no rigid schedules, and nowhere you're forced to be. You sit up, stretch, and pose a simple question to yourself: what shall I do today? For 99% of human history, this wasn't just a hypothetical thought. This was the reality of every morning for roughly 300,000 years. And the answer to that question looked entirely unlike the life you are leading today. Modern humans dedicate about 90,000 hours of their lives to working. That is roughly one-third of your entire waking existence spent on a job. Yet for the vast majority of our history, jobs did not exist. There was no formal employment, no wages, no boss, and no corporate ladder to climb. So how did people actually occupy their days? Let's start with what we know for certain. In 1963, anthropologist Richard Lee conducted a study that transformed our perception of prehistoric life. He observed the daily routines of the Dobe-Ju-Hwansi people in Botswana, one of the few groups whose lifestyle closely mirrors pre-agricultural human existence. He discovered that adults spent only about 2.5 days per week gathering food. That equals roughly 17 hours. The remaining time was theirs to use however they pleased. And here is the crucial takeaway. This pattern is observed wherever anthropologists study similar cultures: the Hadza in Tanzania, the Ashe in Paraguay, the Martu in Australia. Entirely different environments and continents, yet the result is the same. About 15 to 20 hours per week dedicated to survival. For perspective, you likely work double that. Now some might argue, but those are modern people. How can we be sure ancient humans lived the same way? It is a fair question. The answer is written in their bones. When archaeologists compare the skeletons of ancient humans with early agricultural populations, the contrast is striking. The farmers were shorter. Their remains show evidence of nutritional deficiencies. Their teeth were riddled with cavities due to grain-heavy diets. They suffered from spinal arthritis caused by repetitive physical labor. And they lived shorter lives. The ancient hunter-gatherer skeletons? They were taller, stronger, with healthier teeth and less joint wear. Their bones tell a clear story. They performed less repetitive physical toil, not more. However, the most compelling evidence lies in something archaeologists found that shouldn't exist if survival were a non-stop struggle: art. In 1994, explorers discovered the Chauvet Cave in southern France. Inside were paintings dating back roughly 30,000 years. Horses, lions, rhinoceroses, all rendered with perspective, shading, and a sense of movement. These weren't simple sketches. This was sophisticated art demanding skill, intent, and most importantly, time. Someone spent hours, perhaps days, deep within a cave by the flicker of firelight, painting animals onto stone. Not for survival, not for food, for beauty, for meaning, for the sheer act of expression. In Blombos Cave in South Africa, archaeologists uncovered 100,000-year-old perforated shell beads. Tiny holes drilled through shells, clearly intended to be strung as jewelry. The coast was 20 kilometers away. Someone walked 40 kilometers round trip just to gather these shells, then spent hours carefully drilling holes with stone tools, simply to look good. In 2008, researchers discovered a 40,000-year-old flute carved from a vulture bone in Germany. 5 finger holes, perfectly spaced. Whoever created this understood music. They grasped pitch, and they invested significant time crafting it. Not for hunting, not for defense, for music. These aren't isolated finds. Across Europe, Africa, and Asia, archaeological sites from 100,000 years ago onward are filled with evidence of decorative objects, carefully crafted tools far more elaborate than necessary for survival, and items that required hours of focused effort with no immediate practical gain. This is how people spent their time when they weren't securing food. They created, they decorated, they pursued beauty. Let's reconstruct one of their days. You wake up around dawn. The fire from the previous night is still smoldering. Someone adds wood. You eat leftover meat or fish. Maybe some nuts or berries gathered the day before. Breakfast is a social affair. People converse. They discuss loose plans for the day. Not because they must, but because that is human nature. By mid-morning, a small group might head out to hunt or gather. But here is the key. You don't go every day. If the previous hunt was successful and food is in storage, you might not leave camp at all. You might spend your morning crafting tools, sharpening a spear, weaving a basket, scraping an animal hide to make it soft and supple. This isn't work in the modern sense. There is no clock, no supervisor. You do it because competence matters, because being skilled earns you respect, because creating things well is an intrinsic part of being human. When hunting occurs, it isn't the frantic chase depicted in movies. Humans are persistence hunters. We track animals at a steady, rhythmic jog for hours until they overheat and collapse. We are the only species capable of doing this effectively because we can sweat and regulate our body temperature while in motion. Most animals cannot, so we outlast them. The hunt might take 3 to 6 hours, including the trek. Then, the bounty is brought back and shared. Everyone eats. By early afternoon, the productive part of the day is essentially finished. What happens next is what modern people find hardest to grasp. Nothing and everything. People rest. They lounge in the shade and converse. They play with children. They groom one another, picking through hair, reinforcing social bonds. They craft jewelry from shells, beads, or animal teeth. They etch intricate designs into bone or stone. They nap. Anthropologist James Sussman documented that among the Zhou Huanzi, adults spend roughly 6 hours per day in what he termed social time, not working, not sleeping, just being with others, talking, laughing, telling stories. Because in a world without currency, police, or written contracts, your survival depends entirely on your relationships. If people don't value you, they have no obligation to share food when you are hungry. So you invest an enormous amount of time into those bonds, not because it's productive, but because that is how humans stay human. Then the sun sets, and this is when something remarkable occurs. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Wiesner analyzed hundreds of hours of conversation recordings from the Zhou/Huanzi. During the day, their talk was functional. Who saw animal tracks where? Which plants were ready for harvest? Complaints about unfair sharing. But at night around the fire, 81% of conversations shifted to storytelling, myths about the origin of the world, tales of ancestors who achieved the impossible, jokes that sparked laughter, adventures from distant lands. Wiesner argued that this is where human culture truly began. Gods, spirits, the past, the future, things you can only contemplate when your belly is full and you are safe. And people didn't sleep through the night the way you do now. Historical records from medieval Europe and sleep studies from the 1990s confirmed that before artificial light, humans slept in 2 segments. First, sleep for about 4 hours, followed by a wakeful period of 1 to 2 hours in complete darkness. Then second, sleep for another 4 hours. So this is what a full day looked like. About 4 to 6 hours securing food or making tools. About 6 hours of social interaction. Storytelling, grooming, playing. About 8 hours of sleep in 2 separate phases, and the rest. Resting, sitting, watching clouds, doing nothing in particular. Simply existing without needing to justify your life through productivity. Then about 10,000 years ago, things changed. Humans in the Fertile Crescent began planting seeds and domesticating animals. Agriculture. And agriculture is a trap. Once you start farming, you can feed more people. More people means you need more food. More food requires more farming. Within a few generations, populations boomed, and there was no turning back. Because now there were too many mouths to feed through hunting and gathering. You were locked in. And farming demanded much more labor. Plowing, planting, weeding, harvesting, storing, protecting crops from animals and raiders. The skeletal evidence is unambiguous. Early farmers worked harder, ate worse, and died younger than the hunter-gatherers who preceded them. Yet the population continued to grow, and with larger populations came specialists. Tool makers, potters, weavers, inventors, then soldiers, priests, administrators, and eventually jobs. Employment. The notion that your time belonged to someone else in exchange for resources. By the time we built cities, the original human lifestyle had vanished, replaced by rigid schedules, obligations, and the necessity to work for most of your waking hours just to survive within the system we built. Today, you spend 90,000 hours working. Your ancestors spent far less. You sleep in one block and label waking up at 2 a.m. as insomnia. They slept in 2 phases and utilized those quiet middle hours for reflection. You spend your life chasing an illusion of grandeur, achievements, wealth, and success as defined by societal standards. They woke up every morning already free, already enough, and at peace, with nothing to prove to anyone. They didn't strive to become successful. They were already living the life you are working your entire existence to eventually retire into. You create art if you can find the time after your job. They created art because they had time. And that is what humans do. We are not a different species, but we live so differently from how humans lived for 99% of our existence that we might as well be. We traded freedom for food security, leisure for population growth, time for productivity. And most of us have no idea what we sacrificed because we never knew it was there to begin with.